herkese mağazaya uğruyor.
Hello, welcome to the 12th Climate Change Virtual Conference. Today is 19th of April 2022, Tuesday, and we are very honored and pleased to be together with you on the 12th Climate Change Virtual Conference and the award ceremony. The pandemic has been now behind us, and this year we will be focusing on the end of uncertainty in public policies and the new business normal. And we're going to have very esteemed speakers who's going to address us on this screen. And I'm really very happy to be the moderator of today's conference. It's a very critical, very important day. But let's talk about first how collaborated with Sabancı University and what are the reports that will be read today. CDP is a non-governmental organization who is actually looking into the resources are used by the companies, etc., and also they are being an intermediary to risk measurement. And they are described as the strongest NGO in the world by the Harvard University, and we've been also following the important reports of CDP in Turkey for 12 years now. And the company that responded to CDP Turkey is also sharing the results with the international peers. So this is such an important day for us. These reports are very critical for us and also for the entire world. So we have left 2021 behind us, and we have actually it's been actually 21 years that we've been.
Nuestra ciudad se dio cuenta que los efectos del cambio climático eran una realidad. Necesitábamos tomar medidas.
Carbon emissions have financial impact on our investments. As long-term owners, we needed the data.
CDP のような透明性のあるグローバルスタンダードなプラットフォームの重要性が一層増してくると思っています。
There has always been a tension between our economy and our environment. Reconciling the two has proven to be one of the greatest challenges of our age. But 2 decades ago, an environmental movement was born. And it started with a simple yet innovative idea that creating transparency on environmental impact can halt environmental destruction. And once that seed was planted, it grew in size and scope.
CDP pioneered environmental disclosure. We founded CDP in the year 2000 because the risks of climate change had become crystal clear. The simplicity of the original idea behind CDP that investors would ask corporations to disclose on their climate performance. Ultimately, what gets measured gets managed.
Over the past 20 years, the seed CDP planted has grown from a good idea into a global movement.
Two decades ago, when we started talking about carbon disclosure with our companies, many responded with resistance or were put off or in denial. But over time, in working with them, they started to understand that for us as equity managers, we view risk very seriously. Carbon is another form of risk, and the prudent management around carbon emissions is something that we value. This is why we decided to support CDP as one of the first investor signatories.
裾野の広い自動車産業の一員として、私どもが果たすべき役割は非常に大きいと思っています。CDP に回答させていただきますと、ランキングの結果だけではなく、丁寧なフィードバックやレポートをいただくことができます。 CDP のデータベースに私どもの情報を開示していただくことは、CDP のデータをご覧になる多くの投資家の方々に、私どもの取り組みを知っていただくチャンスにもつながります。
We've transformed business as usual and grown that transformation in whole cities and regions.
Para nosotros, la acción ambiental y el desempeño financiero están íntimamente vinculados. Lo que motivó a la ciudad de Buenos Aires a comenzar a informar a CDP fue la posibilidad de poder contar con la centralización de la información y seguimiento de la misma para poder adecuar nuestra planificación a estándares globales y comparables. Esta posibilidad permite generar un lenguaje común entre varias ciudades del mundo que están atravesadas por esta misma situación que afecta a todos.
And it's even reached the halls of government.
Aber mit das Wichtigste war das Pariser Klimaschutzabkommen, weil es einen internationalen Rahmen für den Schutz des Klimas gegeben hat. Das ist wirklich zentral. Klimaschutz muss integraler Bestandteil bei allen Entscheidungen sein. Und wir wollen, dass die Industrie, die Wirtschaft sich auch verändert. Und dafür muss es Transparenz für die Entscheidung geben, wo investiere ich, was tue ich. Deswegen sind die ESG-Kriterien so wichtig. Jetzt muss umgesteuert werden, jetzt müssen die Weichen gestellt werden für die nächsten Jahrzehnte.
Now, the transformation we planted is moving faster than ever towards a better and brighter future. But there's still much work to be done, and the clock is ticking.
So we're acutely aware that CDP's 20th anniversary falls during the COVID crisis. What we can see from this is as governments think about how to build back economies, we need to build back better. The data and insights from CDP's disclosure process are informing the transformation of the economy towards a net zero, water secure, zero deforestation economy. We have a choice. And if every company, investor, city and government becomes aware of the risks and prioritises taking action, we can create a sustainable future, the one that we all want.
At CDP, we believe that our economy and our environment don't have to be at odds. We believe that through transparency, action and ambition, that we can create a thriving economy that works for people and planet in the long term.
Yes, after our video, let's talk about what we're going to do today, what you will be watching. That's what I will talk about. First, we'll start with the opening speeches. We have two distinguished speakers. And after that, we're going to continue with our keynote speaker, an important international speaker, and CDP Climate Change and Water Report team commentators will be with us. Now, Ms. Ararat, our distinguished professor, will present her comments regarding the report, and the Climate Change and Water Report 2021 results will be shared through the screen. Towards the end of our day, there is a panel about the ambiguity in the public policies and the new business models. So we're going to have a session around that theme. Following that, the CDP Turkey team 2021 awards ceremony will follow. We'll be presenting the awards for CDP through the screen. We'll see which brands, which companies deserve this award. Distinguished guests, our main sponsor is Garanti BBVA, and our report sponsor is Deloitte Turkey. We would like to thank them very much for their support. Now we're going to continue with the opening speeches. The first guest is from Garanti BBVA, Deputy General Manager, Ms. Ebru Dildar Edin. Welcome, Ms. Edin. Hi, Ms. Sevinch. How are you? We're together on this beautiful day. Yes, we're very excited. We're together on this great day. We're going to listen to enjoyable and important presentations. I hope that it's going to be fruitful for everyone. Yes, we're very curious to hear what you're going to say. Thank you. Distinguished participants, CDP Turkey 12th Climate Change Conference and Awards Ceremony is on. I would like to welcome you on. First of all, the
CDP is the largest environment reporting platform of the world. It has grown for the last 12 years. It has a very important impact area. We're going to witness it once more today. I'm very happy about this. So we're here in this meaningful ceremony today, and we have a very high number that is unprecedented, and the environmental concerns need to be taken into account in the business models. So it is one of the strongest initiatives that is serving that. In 2021, in our country, the number of companies that reported from Turkey has multiplied by 6 times. It's reached 67%, and the water safety report has increased threefold, and it's reached 44%. So in this climate change reporting, the number of companies that responded, 100% of them integrated climate to their business strategies, and 83 of them, in identifying their business strategies, carried out climate scenario analysis methods. So these are important rates. Our business world in Turkey are following the global developments. They're looking at the 9 financial risks and opportunities. There is a dizzying change and an increasing awareness, and they're also taking part in this picture. So we have this transparent reporting environment in our country. So an unbiased and reliable sustainability assessment is very important thanks to the CDP platform. They have a tremendous contribution for sure. However, despite this positive momentum in the business world, there are these increasing natural disasters, depleted resources, the loss of biodiversity. So the economic activities cannot be sustained with their current status for the sake of the environment. At the point that we have reached, together with economic growth, quality of life, and preservation of climate needs a balance, but we're unable to strike a balance, unfortunately. In the last 10 years, due to climate change, we have seen several natural disasters, and they've led to $2.5 trillion of global losses. And because of these disasters, the number of people that migrated has gone beyond 21 million. Up to 2050, this will be about 1.5 billion people based on the estimate. There are such scenarios, unfortunately. In February 2022, we have seen IPCC report, and for our geography, we see more absolute data. Based on the study, Turkey is one of the most vulnerable country in Europe in terms of excessive air climate events. And in Europe, due to excessive heat, the number of deaths by 2050 will be reaching about 30,000. So these cases, most of these cases are in Europe, and they're in the regions where Turkey is also included. We see that there is an important increase in the heat, and the number of deaths is going to increase threefold by the end of the century. As you know, it's not enough to have this speed of progress. We see it in the most bitter sense. So we have to turn our words into action. We're quite late to do that. And in the new term, we need something else, and we need to ask this question: what do we need? So today, our main theme in our conference is the ambiguity in the public policies and the new business normal. So, distinguished guests, last year, we heard about these issues at the global and local level, that they were voiced in several summits. You know, in Glasgow last November, there was the COP26 summit, and regarding the combat with climate crisis. You know, since the Paris Agreement was signed in 2015, this issue was addressed at a global level for the first time. So this conference was very important for the future of the world, and countries had to announce some binding decisions and commitments. This was very promising. But even in the scenario where all commitments are complied with, there will be about 1.8 degrees of global temperature increase. That's what the International Energy Agency announced. And the output of the conference is very important for the green transformation journey of Turkey. We made commitments up to 2030. So the methane gas emission will be reduced by 30%. We have the global methane commitment. And in order to prevent the loss of biodiversity and in order to combat deforestation, Glasgow Forest and Land Use Leaders report is another thing. And then there is the International Aviation Coalition Declaration. And by 2040 in the world, for new truck and automobile sales, there is this zero emission goal. So for these zero emission vehicles, Glasgow consensus was one of the most important reports. And we see that right before the conference, the Paris Agreement was signed in our assembly. So there is this zero net declaration. This is very important for the public policies and new investments. So this signaled the start of a critical transformation for our country. We see the preparation of climate law, climate committee, the updating of our LDC. So we have seen very tangible initiatives. But I would like to remind you, as I said in the beginning, we are quite late and we don't have much time for combat with climate crisis. So short-term, inclusive and implementable policies are very important, and we need some facilitating incentives to implement those. This is very critical. In the coming term, as we're going to be part of the global economy, in order to enable this, we need to do what green transition requires, and we need to reach sustainable development. These play a key role. So ahead of us, there is this important transformation journey. And we are in the finance sector. We play a major role in this transformation. As Garanti BBVA, as a company that provides financing and also consultancy services, regardless of the customer segment, we support green transition. We are going to act with determination in that regard, not just for our customers, but for all stakeholders and for the development of the local sustainable finance market. We have intense efforts. We're going to increase it further in the coming days. Let me give an example to our efforts. Last year, as a company, we didn't just do index reporting. We also showed our commitment to these processes with another initiative. For the first time in Turkey, a bank implemented the Garanti BBVA Climate Index, which was the first in Turkey. CDP Turkey and Borsa Istanbul, with their collaboration, we presented this index to the market. And we aimed at developing the local sustainable finance market. We wanted to increase the transparency of companies with regard to climate risks. So those were the goals. And last year, in the index, we had 29, and now their number is 32 this year, the number of companies. And we hope that when it comes to climate crisis risks and opportunities, and it's linked to economy, this will be a more important topic. We'll see more companies. We hope that they will actually have successful performance in transparency, and we're going to bring them together with investors. Garanti BBVA Climate Index is in the Borsa Istanbul, and we have the climate change combat, which is a very important topic. So companies do reporting within that framework. So in CDP, it actually focuses on companies that have a good performance, and consistency and objectivity are very important in CDP methodology that is accepted worldwide. So we see companies presenting their climate risks and opportunities transparently. So there is this portfolio with such companies, and we measure their price and revenue performance. We believe that thanks to this index, Turkey will have the scientific reduction of emissions and will reach zero. We hope that these companies will attract international corporate investors. They will be in their radar, and it will bring additional foreign investment and capital to Turkey, hopefully. And our index is a reliable base for investors. At the same time, we have the sustainable finance mechanism structures, and we actually care about a climate-friendly company reputation. We also have the zero target in Turkey. So we do think it's an important evidence in those aspects. As I conclude my words, I would like to underline one point. One of the strongest NGOs of the world is CDP, and we're very happy to be one of the main supporters of their Turkey office. We're very proud. Sabancı University Corporate Management Governance Forum, they started operating under that. So they made a transparency call to the business world. We were one of the companies that responded first. We responded to CDP. We care about transparency and determination in climate change. In this efforts, we congratulate all the leader companies in that regard. We are celebrating this positive impact here, and we hope that it's going to grow further in the coming years. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Edin, for this great presentation and for being with us during the opening. Now we have another important speaker, CDP founder and member of board, Mr. Paul Dickinson.
Hello, my name is Paul Dickinson and I'm founder chair of CDP. It's a great pleasure and honour for me to be with you at the CDP Turkey 2022 conference, the 12th in the series so far. Now this is an important time because we've just had the launch of the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And it has revealed that the world may be on track to warm by more than 3 degrees centigrade, twice the Paris Agreement targets. Now the good news is that Turkey has recently ratified the Paris Agreement. Congratulations. The bad news is that this is partially a result of society in Turkey moving in response to terrible wildfires in your beautiful country. The other bad news, I'm sorry to say, but you probably already know this, it is that extreme weather will get worse for all of our lives, and quite possibly for that of our children, and even potentially for our grandchildren too. And that's what this is all about. It is somewhat shameful, and I'm sorry to say that in all of human history, this is the first time many children in many countries have actually gone on strike. You know, parents love and will do anything to protect their children from immediate threat. But we need to extend that instinct to a less immediate threat, but one that is just as frightening to children as war or famine. Although, to be honest, the threat of climate change may lead to both war and famine. Now, the findings of the CDP Turkey 2022 report support the case for clarity of public policy direction and targets. This is really the time for governments to lead in response to climate change. The theme we need to emphasize is that ending public policy uncertainty and embracing the new business normal will be the key to business success. So what does that mean? All industry is changing. Now, will Turkey lead or will Turkey follow? Never imagine climate change is smaller than you think. The world is changing in every way. I saw a picture of Greta Thunberg, the youth climate striker, speaking to a crowd in Canada in 2019. It was the largest crowd in the history of Canada. Let us look on the positive side. There are tremendous opportunities for Turkey in multiple sectors, such as, for example, agriculture, representing currently 10% of Turkey's export income. The recent $340 million World Bank loan for more sustainable and competitive agriculture points the way. But let me ask here a climate change-related question. What kind of agriculture? The CEO of the company Beyond Meat, Ethan Brown, believes that replacing meat with plant-based alternatives could liberate 90% of agricultural land. Certainly, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change demand we replace meat, and let me tell you, Beyond Meat is now available. Their delicious hamburgers, which I think taste better than meat hamburgers, are available in McDonald's around the world. And their main competitor, Impossible Foods, have their plant-based burgers available in the global Burger King chain. These companies are using food science, which is the opposite of cooking. Instead of making the same things taste different, which is cooking, food science makes different things taste the same. And this has enormous implications for agriculture. But I mentioned that that's just one industry. Other revolutions are now happening in transport, in energy, in home insulation here in Northern Europe, in home cooling further south. And the revolution is also in manufacturing, it's in distribution. I encourage you to look at the CDP report findings to learn more about how our world is changing. Now, let me conclude with a few highlights from the companies reporting to CDP in Turkey. And I'm going to focus not actually on, so to say, mitigation, greenhouse gas emissions, but the critical adaptation issue of water security. There's been a 22% increase in companies prepared to disclose this year on water issues in Turkey, which is great. And Tekfen Holdings, Etisoda, and Kordsa Teknik Tekstil all achieved A scores for the Global Water Programme and showed leadership on water security issues. But we do need to be very careful to plan ahead. 66% of responding companies reported that more than half of total water withdrawals were sourced from water-stressed areas, which is much higher than the previous year, at 53%. And the total financial impact of water-related detrimental effects experienced by companies in Turkey is $174 million, up from 26 million the previous year. If climate is the shark, water is the teeth. So let me just conclude with a big thank you to the companies reporting to CDP. On behalf of your customers, your investors, we're building the economy of the 21st century, and it is a race. But if you move faster, the prize will be enormous prosperity for your company and safety for all of us and for our children. Thank you for your time today.
Very much. Now we would like to invite Mr. Gonzalo Munoz, and he is one of the COP25 education champion of Chile. Mr. Gonzalo, yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sevinch, and thank you, CDP Turkey, for inviting me to speak to you today. Let me first reflect that while organizations such as CDP have been doing a fundamental and absolutely extraordinary work for over 2 decades, I honestly believe that since the release of the IPCC 1.5 report in October 2018, we have seen a consolidation of science-aligned commitments on climate disclosure, also reporting, and also, of course, action. CDP, of course, has been key in building the foundations of what we understand today as the first elementary step on the road to solving the climate crisis, meaning environmental impact disclosure, but in turn has served to put in place what I believe is currently the main driver that is moving the global climate agenda, and that has allowed to accelerate the activation of the ambition loop in these last 3 years. I am referring to the role of the financial sector. Let's go back to 2015, when the member states signed the Paris Agreement. In that same moment, they also requested for the IPCC to analyze the temperature goal, as well as they also empowered the non-state actors to work towards the fulfillment of the agreement. That precise moment was the first activation of the ambition loop. 4 years later, in 2019, with the confirmed 1.5 degree target, we're searching for subnational governments, companies, and financial institutions from all around the world that could commit to the 1.5 degree trajectory, meaning, of course, net zero by 2050 at the very latest, as is the base of the Race to Zero campaign that I had the honor to launch with my dear friend Nigel Topping, someone very well known by CDP, and he is now moving the agenda forward with the COP27 high-level champion, Dr. Mahmoud Moheldin. For the Secretary General Summit in September 2019, we found 100 companies committed to this concrete goal, net zero by 2050, and therefore aligned with the 1.5 degree. 3 months later, almost 800 companies at COP25 in Madrid. Since then, the number has grown to 5,500 companies at COP26 in Glasgow, representing more than 15% of the global GDP by revenue. All of them fully aligned with science and formally committed with the United Nations in a global campaign where, of course, CDP has been a fundamental partner. This has continued to grow in the last 4 months, drawing a clear exponential curve that expresses the inevitability of the trend. We will soon update the numbers to confirm all of this trajectory. The Race to Zero has a 5P rule. The first one being pledge. You have to pledge formally at the United Nations through different partner initiatives. The second P is plan, and plan according to science and validated by science. The third P is proceed towards 2030, accelerate your trajectory. The fourth P is to publish, to be transparent at least once per year on what you're doing. And the fourth P is policies, persuade. Therefore, act towards the right type of policy and never against it. And all of this acceleration of commitments has happened also in the midst of the pandemic, with the economic crisis, with the invasion of Ukraine, with all of the economic situation that we're living. So it's really important to take into consideration that the acceleration is absolutely inevitable. A big number of those companies are also certified B Corporation, B Corps, that have committed to achieve net zero by 2030. Doing amazing efforts to adapt their business models and their value chain to achieve that goal. We expect that in every country we are capable of using that capacity to move ahead with the climate commitments and the climate agenda. The private sector is definitely waking up to the tragedy of the climate crisis, following the evidence, following the work of the NGOs, following science, following also the voice of the youth, and also following, as I said, the power of money. In the Secretary General Summit in 2019, we were capable of putting together 30 asset owners with $2.4 trillion committed to follow the 1.5 degree trajectory. 1 year later, in December 2020, that number grew to $13 trillion, including also asset managers. In Glasgow, 1 year later, the number went to 440 financial institutions with more than $130 trillion, including now banks, insurance companies, and service providers. Again, an exponential curve. This is the best expression of the ambition loop that now is again in your hands to move from voluntary to regulated. In this moment, we're seeing some great progress in that sense, from the initial days of CDP to now having cases like the UK, where since April 6th this year, over 1,300 of the largest UK registered companies and financial institutions have now to disclosure climate-related financial information on a mandatory basis. In line, of course, with recommendations from the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. This includes many of the UK's largest traded companies, banks, and insurers, as well as private companies with over 500 employees and 500 million pounds in turnover. And of course, we had the US Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, that a few weeks ago formally proposed new rules that would be, for the first time, required for business to report their greenhouse gas emissions along with details of how climate change is affecting their businesses. Even in my country, in Chile, we're now starting to see the first expression of this with a new rule on ESG disclosure that will be mandatory starting next year. Those are fantastic expressions of the ambition loop, an ambition loop that can not only be about mitigation, must include adaptation, resilience, and climate justice. That is the base of the race to resilience, searching for the need support for the 4 billion people that today are suffering the hardest effects of the climate crisis. And if I try to connect the dots, we all know that the financial sector is increasing their active involvement with ESG, where the E has been getting stronger and stronger, while the S seems to be missing. The climate agenda has the capacity and should provide some fundamental elements to the ESG trend while requiring solidarity and inclusion to be in the center of every climate action. I honestly believe the private sector has been increasingly understanding that the risk of inaction is so much bigger than any cost related to acting now. And some markets are adjusting really fast, never fast enough, I know, but really fast. For example, former hard to abate sectors like cement have now become possible to abate. We have seen an amazing increase in numbers of commitments to the race to zero coming from the cement and concrete industry. All of this not only in scope 1 and 2, but including also scope 3, and therefore the whole value chain. In this aspect, I celebrate CDP's annual supplier engagement rating, the SIR, that provides a rating for how effectively companies engage their suppliers on climate change since 2018. I know that businesses that disclose their environmental data in Turkey had significant progress in suppliers engagement rating this year. That is massive and definitely the way to go in order to solve the crisis. Every single company has to start not only embracing their own internal climate impact, but also getting related and engaging all of their suppliers. With everything that is happening around the world, this is the moment of truth. We need to open more space for the energy transition, for electromobility, for sustainable cities, for green hydrogen and green ammonia, for climate smart agriculture and also regeneration, for public and private partnerships, for circular economy. Of course, always starting with a voluntary commitment, then absolutely be determined to learn, improve, and then disclose. And finally, get aligned with the power of money and move from voluntary to regulated. For the private sector, this is a moment of climate accountability and climate solidarity. My understanding is that for the governments, this is a moment to keep accelerating the ambition loop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. CDP Climate Change and Water Report 2021 interpretation. Now we will be inviting Melsa Ararat, the CDP Turkish Director. Hello, Ms. Sevinç. I would like to welcome you all on behalf of CDP Turkey. This is our 12th meeting with most of you, and you've been attending since 2010. I remember Professor Nicholas Schütter was actually the guest in our first CDP conference, and back then only 10 companies had attended our invitation. Most of them were actually a part of the Borsa Istanbul, the Stock Exchange Istanbul. Since then, the number of companies who have been doing voluntary reporting is 67 now. And our 12th report has shown that during this time, the business world has taken very important steps to decrease the impact on the climate change, and they have been also more attentive in risk management. And however, looking at the IPCC report, we have seen that the world has been actually heating more than 3 degrees. And this level of temperature increase will definitely affect painfully all the societies around the world. And this is actually the result of the interaction between politics, economics, and power relations. And the global green gas emissions will reach the peak point in 2025, according to the IPCC report, and then absolutely it has to go down from that point on. And we also know that the funding of climate change has to be increased between 3 to 6 folds. As you know, CDP activates the market dynamics and offers a platform where the economic activities on climate change is assessed. The companies in Turkey, as you know, the Turkish government has become a signatory state to the Paris Agreement in 2016, and the Turkish companies were actually suffering from the involuntary attitude of the Turkish government to actually ratify this Paris Agreement in the parliament. And in 2018, in our conference, we have asked for the attention of the companies in Turkey to this fact. And since then, the CDP reporting has been accelerated. And the leading private sector companies in Turkey has really been active in terms of pushing the government to ratify the Paris Agreement in the parliament. And these analyses actually also show us that the Turkish companies really understood how net zero emission strategy is critical for the future of the country and the business world. However, unfortunately, Turkey has not yet defined a goal to decrease the emissions to an absolute zero. And according to the Turkey's INDC, the current scenario up to 2030, Turkey will be only able to decrease the green gas emissions to 21% and will reach net zero emissions in 2053. Unfortunately, these are not adequate numbers that would support the competitiveness of Turkey, because Turkey will very easily go to the CCPI index, I mean, very low performing countries. Before commenting on the CDP report of 2021, let's look at what these reports mean for us. In 2021, 13,189 companies has reported to CDP. In Turkey, we started with 10 companies only back in 2010. Now we are up to 2,900 companies, which means that the number of companies around the world has increased by 4.5 folds, whereas in Turkey, the number of companies reporting to CDP increased by 6.7 folds. And also, when we add the 51 companies on top of the 67 companies that are already directly reporting to CDP, then the number of companies reporting to CDP in Turkey reaches 118. And in the last year, especially, there has been a great momentum. This increase is probably the reason because the uncertainty in the public policies have relatively came down. Turkey, against all odds, is actually, when we look at the reporting quality, is one of the pioneer countries, actually, because I mean, I'm saying against all odds because, you know, when it comes to transparency, Turkey is not rated as the highest country, but despite this, out of 117 countries, Turkey is actually one of the most transparent 20, is among the most transparent 20 countries that are actually making the most comprehensive announcements when it comes to climate change and water safety. In its reporting, the number of countries that are actually, the number of companies that are actually reporting with at least 24 indicators is only 33%. and Turkey is one of them, right after Japan. So Turkey ranks the third right after Japan and Taiwan, and this actually shows how willing Turkey is when it comes to encourages public policies, and also 42% of the companies use carbon pricing in their pricing strategy. And with at least a B grade, the number of companies who actually earned to a part in carbon index has increased by 100%. So both in the reporting side and also in the quality of the reporting, there has been a leap in Turkey, and this is due to the public policy certainty being more certain than before. Up until this year, the companies who were using their dominant place in the market has been actually had stayed very behind when it comes to climate related reporting. But this year, for the first time, we have seen that the number of countries reporting in climate change active in the stock exchange Istanbul 100 has increased considerably. And of course, the climate funding that is offered by EBRD and other international institutions has played an important role here. This year, 8 Turkish companies were rated A by CDP, and they have become among the global leaders when it comes to covering their value chain, supply chain. And also we more than 90% of the companies, when it comes to awarding and encouragement criteria for the executive board and board of chairmen, they've been actually encouraging the executives to be a part of this. So definitely this fact that the regulation
On the other
supporting
hand, there
these
are some
criteria has
operational
encouraged
risks
the
due to
Turkish
excessive climate events that is seen as a risk. So
companies.
behind that, in Turkey and the world, the abnormal climate events increase plays a major role. And on the other hand, reports show another important reality. Aside the risks, companies start to see the market opportunities more, and there are some risks and opportunities defined by the reporting companies, and their value is a total of 270 and 260 billion US dollars, more or less. And there are regulation related risks, like in the climate change reports. And it is actually one of the most important risks, it is reported by the water reporting companies. In last year's CDP report, there was mention of the economic strategies after the pandemic, and there was focus on green recovery, which aimed at responding to the climate change thanks to the EU policies. I voiced the results of that. So energy security risks with the war in Ukraine can have a similar result, may have a similar impact, and it may encourage stronger policies for acceleration to renewable energy and zero carbon economy. The world is not at a good point in terms of reducing climate risks. We have seen that in the IPCC report, and governments have identified certain policies for reducing carbon till the end of 2020. And even if that were implemented, the world will get 3.2 degrees warmer, which is catastrophic. There were some newspaper headlines displaying the latest IPCC report. We're at the point of now or never. And adaptation to climate change will be more expensive than mitigation or carbon emission reduction. And yes, this is a more expensive strategy, but inevitably we have to focus on adaptation. Companies and countries need to do this, although it is a much higher cost. And as we share the 2021 results, the 2022 reporting cycle started last week. We believe that in 2022, the number of Turkish companies that report will increase to a great extent. You can, of course, see the CDP methodology. They're changing constantly. It gets more difficult to be in the list of leaders. So if you would like to get prepared for the reporting process and see the developments, you can visit the CDP website. I hope that we will meet in the 13th Turkey CDP Climate Change Conference, and I hope we will meet and see a better picture. I wish you all a fruitful conference. I would like to thank Garanti Bank BBVA and Deloitte Turkey for their support in reporting. I also would like to thank the Sabancı University Corporate Governance Forum team for all their efforts and for the beautiful report that I encourage you all to have a look at. Thank you very much, distinguished Professor Melsa Ararat. Now, CDP Climate Change and Water Report 2021 results will be shared. I would like to invite CDP Projects Manager, Ms. Zeynep Dağdemir. Yes, now we will listen to the results of the report from you. Hi, my name is Zeynep Dağdemir. I am CDP Turkey Projects Manager. Today I will be presenting the CDP 21 Turkey results. So these are the data that are announced by the companies. I will show some sections of this analysis. In order to reach the full report, you can use this website, cdpturkey.com. In Turkey, the number of companies that respond to CDP climate change program was 41 1 year before. Now it's 67, and 41 of these companies got official invitation from investors. They're registered in the BIST 100 of Borsa Istanbul. And in the last 5 years, there is an increase for the first time. The rest of the companies did a voluntary reporting. The analysis in the report excludes 3 sub-companies, so it is based on the data of 64 companies. The number of companies that responded to CDP Water Program was 44 in 2021, and 33 of them had official invitation, 11 had voluntary reporting. And in our water program, there were 41 companies that were included in our analysis. When it comes to climate change and water security, in addition to the reports, in 2021, for the first time in Turkey, a company reported within the framework of the CDP Forest Program. We hope that this will be a priority, and in the coming years, we hope that the impact of deforestation will be seen more by companies in terms of its economic impact. Now, I would like to continue with more detail of the report with regard to climate change. In companies, when it comes to climate issues at the board level, the number of companies that take care of this issue increase every year. In the past year, the rate of the companies was 33%, and now it's 53% in 2021. And As for the companies that reported among the climate change risks, those that have a direct impact on company operations increase every year. In 2021, 97% of the companies had climate change related risks with their company operations. Now, almost all companies focus and are aware of these risks, and they develop certain mechanisms for taking measures. And including this issue in the corporate governance is now a new business normal. You see in this graph, one of the main risks, 77% of the companies talk about regulation-related risks as one of the main risks. So regulations are seen as a main risk. This was 65% the year before. So there's an increase from 65% to 77%. And up until the ratification of Paris Agreement, there was this ambiguous policy of the government regarding climate. So that could be one explanation. But then the ratification of the Paris Agreement shows that this ambiguity will be left behind when it comes to policies. And in transition to low carbon economy, there are certain opportunities that are defined. These are as important as the risks themselves. In 2020, 89% of the companies defined those opportunities, and now it's 91%. So every year, when it comes to climate change policies, the main factor is rather the risks than the opportunities. So when it comes to climate change, companies do not really see the opportunities enough. They're not aware enough, or they cannot make use of the opportunities at a sufficient level. In 2021, one of the there were 18 risk factors that are important for companies, and carbon pricing mechanism is important for 70% of the companies, which was 59% the year before. When we take into account national and international regulations, carbon pricing mechanisms trigger risks. So this is an expected situation, an expected factor. And when it comes to climate change, companies would like to address the issue efficiently. So they have certain measures and adaptations mechanism. They need to implement this, including all areas, especially when it comes to reducing emissions. In order to have meaningful action, value chain emission needs to be included in the reporting process. In 2021, with regard to supply chain, there were more opportunities identified. The year before, 17 of the companies that reported, and in 2021, 33% of the companies reported opportunities with regard to value chain. And most of the reporting companies now identify emission targets. As you see, in 2021, there was at least one emission reduction goal for 91% of the companies. And there are some companies that give detailed information about the emission intensity. It was 11%, and now the rate of these companies is 23%, but this is not enough. In attaining their targets, global companies are moving towards clean energy more and more. As they reduce the emissions, they increase their energy efficiency at the same time and reduce their energy use. In Turkey, the companies that report to CDP, only 9% of them focus on energy consumption or efficiency in their targets. And in 2021, this was 11%. And in terms of transition to renewable energy from conventional energy is the top company strategy, should be the top company strategy today. But in Turkey, the companies that aim at reducing fossil fuel is almost non-existent. CDP is inviting investors, companies, cities to measure, because you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So it encourages managing the environmental impact and encourages to build a sustainable economy. There is the scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. Their measurement and reporting is very important. Companies need to identify the situation and develop more conscious targets. This is of vital importance. In 2021, all the sectors that reported, 97% of all those companies were in scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. They reported scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. You see this graph here. In their CDP reporting, from the first moment onwards, companies have their scope 1 and scope 2 reporting. They would like to sustain this reporting. At the same time, this year, 92% of the companies reported scope 3 emissions as well. This was an important development. As for the science-based targets, this is about the greenhouse emissions and its rate of reduction. This needs to be analyzed based on scientific data. And in 2021, only 41% of companies for the next 2 years have a target of science-based targets. That's what they reported. And in 2021, in 2020, this was lower, but it's still low. And in the next 2 years, when it comes to science-based targets, the number of companies that do not plan this is decreasing every year. In 2020, this was 19%. Now it's down to 11%, so this gives hope. I would like to talk about the CDP water program and the analysis of the data there. As we all know, water security is very important. It has an influence of company operations and vice versa. The strategic decisions of a board can change the impact of a company on water resources radically. In 2021, almost all of the companies that reported said that the water issues are addressed at the board level. As for the responding companies, more than 50% of them addressed the issue at the CEO level. In terms of water security, the number one strategy is reducing water use. In Turkey, CDP water program responding companies, 41% of them say that they have a lower water consumption, and 17% reported a higher consumption. 49% of the responding companies said that compared to last year, they withdraw less water from underground water resources. 29 companies said that they withdraw more water compared to previous year. As for the security of the underground resources, this is important. And we see that the reporting companies increased more, and 66% withdraw water from areas where water is scarce. This is really important. You see the water withdrawal and discharge destinations on this graph. 76% of the withdrawn water is supplied from third parties, and 78% of the water is discharged from the third party land. So unfortunately, companies have negative activities outside the borders of their facilities. And 98% of the reporting companies in Turkey say that they report risk assessment with regard to water, but only 27% of the companies report that water has a negative impact on their operations. This is a low figure, and this indicates that in risk assessment, companies do not address water security in all aspects. As for the reported risk factors and their potential impact, in direct operations, the most reported risk factors are floods and the increasing water stress. And in the value chain, the most reported risk factors are drought and excessive climate conditions. As for the potential impact of the risks in direct operations, the most reported potential impact is by 34%, increasing operational costs. And in the value chain, at the top level, the potential impact is the reducing sales or revenue losses due to loss of products. The previous slide was about the factors that trigger risks. Here are the types of risks. There are physical risks, like last year in 2021 as well. They had 68% impact on direct operations and 49% in the value chain. So it's the most reported type of risk. 93% of the companies have a target with regard to water. As for its details, we see that the targets are not really ambitious enough. In 2021, only 5% of the companies have this habitat restoration or ecosystem preservation targets. And in the reporting process, value chain needs to be included. This is very important, and we underline that at every single opportunity. 61% of the responding companies from Turkey talk about the water use. They ask for suppliers to report about their water use. There is an increase in the graph. So in terms of the integration of value chain, we see that the companies are getting more and more conscious. Before I conclude my words, I'd like to talk about the CDP grading methodology and the score distribution briefly. In the CDP methodology, the companies are rated from D to A in terms of transparency, awareness, management, and leadership. And in the climate and water program, some companies get A and B score. They have the leadership and management level. In 2020, it was 36%. In 2021, it's 50 companies. Sorry, it was 36 and now it's 50 companies. There is a stable increase there every single year. In the last reporting cycle in the climate change, the companies with B score increased by 100% compared to previous year. This is noticeable. And when we examined that, the companies that got the B score, most of them were actually at a higher score in the previous year. And in the performance assessment, we see there is a more strict procedure. And over the years, companies gain experience. And in line with this experience, they don't want to lose their position. So they should have more ambitious targets in order to achieve this. And there is the A and AX scores. There are companies that are at the leadership level. We're going to announce their names as our conference continues. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, İdil Hanım. Now, I would like to invite the distinguished professors for the panel of the day. We're going to talk about the end of ambiguity in the public policies and the new business normal. I would like to give the floor to our professor from Kadir Has University, Energy and Sustainable Development Research Center Director, Professor Volkan Ediger. I would like to
Welcome to the 12th conference's panel session right now. The panel's title is The End of Uncertainty in Public Policies and the New Business Normal. As you know, in 2015, the world has entered a completely new era with the acceptance of this new development goals. And then after the signature of the Paris Agreement, we have two very important goals ahead of us. One of them is Fit for 55. And until 2030, all emissions will be decreased by 50 to 55%. The other one is the 2050 zero emission goal that we all are familiar with. Now, after these goals, as you know, the European Union has started the Green Compact, and then and although we're going to speak about the end of uncertainty in public policies in our panel, actually we will be talking about the beginning of uncertainty, because the governments, institutions, private sector, public sector, I mean, all of these institutions are now facing this problem about how they're going to reach these goals, because many believe that these goals will not be able to be reached. But of course, there are some who are still optimistic. But even European Union thinks that this is not realistic. That's why they actually initiated a new practice. And they said in 100% renewable energy will not be available in 2050, but nuclear will be supporting during this transition period to the 100% renewable energy. So we have a huge uncertainty ahead of us. This uncertainty are especially more critical in countries like Turkey, because yes, we did have zero carbon emission goal in Turkey, but how are we going to reach this goal? How are we going to decrease gradually the fossil fuel usage? What will be the regulation that will be enacted by the government? These are all still question marks. And we have two very important panelists, one from Turkey, one from abroad. One of them is from a banking sector, one of them is an industrialist, the other one is one of the global executives of the CDP. So I would like to start with our first speaker. Our first speaker is Harry Boyd Carpenter. He is from EBRD. He is a high-level executive about green economy, and he graduated from Oxford University, started working in EBRD. He assumed many different positions, many different roles. Then in 2021, in April, he assumed a new position where he will be responsible. He is the manager director of green economy, and he is actually responsible for the coordination of all green related activities of EBRD, and also he is responsible that some part of the funding should be the green funding that is given by the EBRD. So all speakers will have 15 minutes. We're going to have two tours. So every tour we're going to give you 5 to 7 minutes. So do you think that it will be possible to reach these goals? That will be your question for the first tour. And the second tour, please talk about what your institutions are actually doing to reach these goals. Yes, Harry, the floor is yours, please.
So thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you for the invitation to speak at this conference. It's a great honor. I'll perhaps say a few words just about EBRD. I hope that many of your attendees know who we are, but for those who don't, we're an international development, multilateral development bank. Despite the name, we're extremely active in regions well beyond Europe. We stretch from Morocco to Mongolia, but our sort of heartland remains Central and Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe, Turkey, and Central Asia, North Africa. For us, climate change and the green economy are absolutely fundamental goals. We have a commitment that by 2025, more than 50% of our investments should be in the green sphere. We managed to achieve that goal last year, and so now we're looking to build on that and to do more and more and more. It's not just about investment, though. It's also about trying to help our countries of operation rewire their economies, change the regulatory framework that govern the way their economies work and the way investors are active in their economies, in order to be able to deliver a climate friendly, a climate resilient, and a low carbon economy. Turkey is consistently one of our largest countries of operation, if not the largest, and well over half of our investments in Turkey are typically green investments. And that can be everything from supporting renewable energy to supporting industrial companies trying to green their production, to supporting municipalities. Very recently, for example, we helped the city of Gaziantep. We signed a loan with the city of Gaziantep to replace many of its buses with electric buses. If I turn to your first question was, is it realistic? I hope so, is my answer. I think if it isn't, if we don't achieve a very fundamental transformation in our economies, it is clear that we are going to have really serious problems across all sorts of spheres. There's a very famous Italian novel, The Leopard, which has this often quoted phrase that says, if we want things to stay the same, then everything must change. And I think that's very appropriate for climate change. If we want to keep the quality of life that certainly Europe has developed in the last century, and that many other countries are reaching and have a right to, if we want to have that quality of life, then we have to change the whole way in which our economies operate. And we have to change the way, above all, in which we fuel our economies. I think what is clear is that getting to 2030 is entirely realistic. If you look at the fundamental numbers and say, what do we need to do? We need to reduce emissions to 0 by 2050, and we need to halve those emissions by 2030. Getting to 0 is extremely challenging. And it's clear that there are the last part of that road is very, very difficult. And in fact, we probably don't have now the technologies to get to 0. But what is also clear is that we do have the technologies to get to reduce emissions by half by 2030. And I think, so my answer is, I don't know if it's realistic to get to 0 by 2050, but I do know that it's realistic to halve emissions by 2030. And therefore, I think we can really focus on that. And in a way, almost not worry about the last stage. I like to climb mountains, and I often say, you know, I went to climb some mountains last week with my children, and of course, like all children, they complain and they say, you know, how much further is it, and when will we get to the top? And my answer is always, don't think about the top, just take the next step and the next step. And I think sometimes climate change is a little bit like that. You know, let's focus on what we can do tomorrow, the next year, the next 5 years. Let's focus on that 2030 goal, and then, you know, we'll worry about the 0 when we get a little bit closer to 2050. And if I just finish by expanding on that theme a little bit, because of the theme of this conference is about disclosure and it's about corporate governance. I think what is also clear is that even if you don't know whether or not getting to 0 is realistic, even if you don't know exactly what the shape is, there are some things you really can know. You can know that it always makes sense to be transparent about your risks, transparent internally in terms of thinking through your risks, and transparent externally in terms of disclosing to your investors and your stakeholders your risks and your exposure to those risks. So it always makes sense to disclose those risks, and it always makes sense to govern them well, which means to have processes in place to assess those risks, to manage them and mitigate them. And that's one of the things I think we keep coming back to in these discussions, which is a lot of things we can do to address a climate emergency just make sense. They make sense in all scenarios. They make sense for lots of reasons that are not to do with climate. So I do think that's why a conference like this is so important. The work of the CDP is so important. And let's start with some basics. We know that we can disclose risks, so let's disclose them. We know that we can manage those risks or have governance processes in place to assess those risks, so let's do that. And then we also know that there are an awful lot of things we can do right now to reduce energy consumption, to decarbonize energy consumption. So let's just take those risks, take those steps, do those things, and let's worry about the 0 when we get a bit closer to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harry. Either you're optimistic or you're pessimistic, I don't know, but you're definitely very realistic. I really liked your approach very much. I mean, instead of thinking about the peak, the summit, you have to think about your next steps. It's so true. Now I'd like to give the floor to Sonia. She is the Global Head of Value Chains and Regional Director Corporations at CDP. She has over 17 years of environmental experience, both in the public and private sector. Over the last few years, she has specialized especially on Scope 3. Sonia, I'm asking the same question to you. Is it realistic or not?
Thank you very much for the question. Thank you very much for having me on such a distinguished panel. Do I think it's possible to achieve these goals? I think we can, but not only do I think we can, I think we must. Just to reiterate what Harry said, the other option is almost unthinkable. Paul Dickinson, the chair of CDP, touched on that earlier. The fallout of us not meeting these goals, the impact on our children in the future requires us to meet these goals. And I think that human resilience and ingenuity will rise to the occasion. However, it's going to require collaboration on a scale which is potentially unprecedented. Geographical borders, political borders, they mean nothing to climate change. The impacts will be felt globally, and therefore the responsibility must be tackled globally. What does this mean for a company? I've been working with companies looking at climate change, I think, as you mentioned, for in excess of 15 years, and it's probably coming up to 2 decades. I don't like to count anymore. But here are a few things that I've learned or seen. The scale of pace since the Paris Agreement has been phenomenal. The level of corporate engagement, the movement towards setting targets in line with science. We're at 1,000 companies globally, but there is a pipeline behind that that's astronomical. There is a lot of these 1,000 companies have committed to cascading science-based targets down their value chain. So we're seeing the level of ambition from the companies, rising up to meet that the governments have issued. What we're also seeing particularly is these companies are using their influence to drive further action outside of their operational boundaries. Many of the speakers have touched on value chain. It happens to be a point of my expertise. I won't labor it. But as Gonzalo mentioned, one thing we're seeing more frequently is value chain emissions, scope 3. And we're seeing the role of companies in being able to drive action beyond their borders by engaging with their global supply chain as being one of the key levers that needs to be pulled in the next few years to get us to the halfway point that Harry mentioned, but also to get us beyond to that net zero. And I was delighted to see that Turkey had 8 companies receiving a score of the supplier engagement rating. Again, that level of collaboration, engaging with your suppliers, taking responsibility for emissions outside of your control, shows the level of collaboration that's needed across all parties, governments, corporations, even individual actors. That's the kind of level of collaboration that we need to achieve it. And I'm optimistic because I think that more people are coming to the table. And when they do, and as they do, and that cascade happens, there'll be a tipping point. And hopefully at that tipping point, we'll see more companies get involved. I'm going to level off that optimism with a quick example of realism to go alongside it. As I mentioned, I work with many companies, and the fact of the matter is the level of recognition of climate change is still not there at a global level. I worked with one consumer goods company based in the US who asked some of their biggest suppliers to disclose to CDP, disclose their greenhouse gas emissions to CDP. They received a reply from one of their suppliers, who is not a small to medium enterprise, a pretty sizable company, that said, "Thank you very much for the invitation to partake in CDP, but I don't think this is meant for us. We don't own any greenhouses." So the level to achieve these goals is possible, but the level of collaboration, commitment, and education needs to rise in the next year. I'll stop there. I hope that answers the question, or at least gives an inkling to it.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Yes, as you said, I mean, we know the awareness is so low. We need education, and that's why CDP and other NGOs have to actually work more on raising awareness. So our next speaker is from Turkey, from finance sector. He is the sustainable finance executive in Guarantee Bank. She has more than 8 years hands-on experience in project and structured finance. She graduated from economics from Boğaziçi University. She also leads the sustainability team of the bank. Yes, Seray, welcome. Let's hear about your opinion. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. In Turkey, once the Paris Agreement was ratified by the parliament, the lawmakers, the business world, and the local administrators had to take certain actions. And before that, actually, in 2021, the green project of Turkey was also announced. I mean, there were many important steps taken by the Turkish government. 2020, 2021 were actually very important years where we have seen very concrete steps taken. And of course, once the Paris Agreement was ratified by the parliament, then this pace has accelerated. And we did the GOP 2026 conference. We organized the GOP 2026 conference, and we also announced our goals for the emissions. So for the Paris Agreement to be valid in Turkey is, of course, very much tied to funding processes. So now we are talking about the green revolution, and the president has actually announced a 3.2 billion TL worth of grants given to green projects. And of course, to reach these funding packages and the conditions of these packages, definitely
it actually requires a more ambitious climate program on the side of Turkey. So in line with the 2053 net zero goal, Turkey should create a national contribution statement and come up with the investment plans to enable this transition. And in February, as a bank, we were involved in the Green Financing and Carbon Pricing Commission. We were part of that. And also we witnessed this important climate meeting. As for the results of this meeting, it will be an input for the climate law. So the 2053 net zero. When we think of that, these are important steps. And the results of this meeting are not officially announced yet, but when we look at the decisions on the financing side, the 2053 net zero emission goal. So there will be this national green strategy, and there will be incentives and supports for green transition. So the general principles, criteria, and conditions for this will be established, and the green financing tools, whether they're in line with international standards, there is need for the regulation base. So there are very critical decisions around that. This is not only important for public financing, but also for private financing in combating climate crisis. So it will not leave anybody behind. In terms of sustainable development, these are very important developments. Well, the details are not clear yet, but it is started as a green development revolution. And it's of course great to see the tangible steps that are taken. But this is an issue that threatens the future. Is it enough? No, we need more efficient, faster decisions. And we can only reach those goals if we take stronger steps. Every day we see new disasters in our country, floods, wildfires, etc. And of course, it will have a very huge financial cost at the end, a financial burden. As Garanti BBVA, we have been going on for 15 years. It's not just the finance sector, but we are going to give support for the green transition of all sectors. We're going to continue with this process, and we hope that these green financing actions will be implemented as soon as possible by the other, decision makers. Thank you very much. Garanti BBVA is doing great work in terms of green financing in Turkey. We hope that your activities will increase further. So I would like to give the floor to the last speaker. The last speaker is from the industry, Mr. Cevdet Alemdar. He's from Boğaziçi University, and then he has an BS MS degree from Sabancı University as well. And he had an MBA at Sabancı University. He couldn't get away from that university. In 1993, he entered Sabancı Holding, Banksa, Kortsa, Temsa, Pilisa. So he worked in all of these Sabancı companies in different positions. And he is also a member of TÜSİAD, Turkish Business People Association. He continues his activities there as well. Welcome, Mr. Alemdar. So from the perspective of the industry, what would you say about those climate targets in Turkey and in the world? Thank you very much for giving me the floor. First of all, I am representing the Turkish Business People Association here today. When it comes to environment, climate change, and energy, we have the TÜSİAD roundtable, and I'm representing that roundtable. And I'm among experts here, so I'll cut short. I know that this is a very important issue, and TÜSİAD has always been a pioneer in this area. From the very beginning, before Turkey ratified Paris Agreement, TÜSİAD supported this agreement, made announcements in that regard. So I have a couple of highlights. We have this TÜSİAD report titled Building the Future. So I would like to highlight a few points there. How important is this issue in Turkey? As for the excessive climate events, in 2022, there were 140 events. And in 2020, it's 984. So we have 3 excessive climate events in Turkey every single day. And unfortunately, this is just the beginning. When we look at the scorecard of Turkey, it's not too bad, but it's not too good either. For instance, let's take energy efficiency. We're quite poor there. Among OECD countries, we're ranking almost the last. Another negative issue is this greenhouse emission. In Turkey, from 2005 to 2016, there was a serious increase there. And compared to the rest of the OECD region. But there are some good aspects too. For instance, renewable energy sources. It's about 50% based on the energy data for 2020. As for the renewable energy capacity, it's higher than Europe's today. And on the other hand, plastic recycling. In Turkey, there's about 3 million tons of waste recycling. And 33% of this 1.1 million ton can be recovered. This is good. So this is positive. As for the renewable energy issue, there's one more thing. I said we're good on that side. When it comes to wind energy, we only use 20% of that today. As for solar energy, we only use 7% of that today. So we have a lot more distance to cover. We have a lot of opportunity there. And well, yes, we're here among experts. So beyond how important this topic is, I want to say a few other issues. There are 5 concepts. There are steps that both the public and the private sector needs to take in Turkey. There are 5 important concepts. One is digitization and green transit. We think that digitalization and green transition are hand in hand. You cannot separate them from each other. I was in COP26. I listened to Al Gore. I had the chance to speak to him. So measurement is very important. It's very important for realizing green transition. So digitalization is very important. Digitalization and green transition are inseparable from one another. And of course, the technological transformation is very important for that. And also in the value chain, you need green transition throughout the value chain. And when we talk about following that transition, again, it's about digitalization. So that's the first concept, digitalization. I also would like to talk about energy efficiency. We're not doing well there. In the Turkish business world, in the production processes, resource and energy efficiency require modernization, alternative raw material use, carbon storage technologies, measurement systems, investment. So we see that this agenda is on the rise, and it has to be the case. There are ESG criteria, mechanisms, having finance resources, access to finance resources. So this is very important in that regard. And the second important concept that I'd like to talk about is taxonomy. What is green? What is not? What is sustainable? What is not? There is the European Union taxonomy. So in Turkey, this has to be clarified as soon as possible so that we know what we're talking about. I mean, otherwise there will be container concepts. Everything is loaded on sustainability. That is wrong. We have to talk about taxonomy. We have to be speaking the same language scientifically. The third concept, we always talk about Paris Agreement, 2053 targets. The main issue there is the carbon adjustment mechanism at the border. And in order to reduce the emission, there is this emission trade system. This is established in Europe and it is announced. But in Turkey, this has to be clarified in line with Europe. This is critically important because one of our largest export markets is Europe. We're not doing bad there. However, we should immediately take measures and clarify that point in Turkey. So this will open the ways for financing for us as well. There is one point that I'd like to make. So this carbon adjustment at the border tax, we shouldn't just see this as a relation in terms of our relationship with Europe alone. Europe has the self-protection mechanism from carbon leakage. They just have this as a protection mechanism. I'm among experts, so I'm not going to explain in detail what carbon leakage is, but there is this emission trade system. So we should bring this to Turkey immediately. Otherwise, this carbon leakage mechanism, we're going to be affected by that in Turkey. It will actually be risky for the transformation of our industry and our economy. The fifth concept and the final concept is as follows. I talked about emission trade system. I said we should bring carbon adjustment at the border. So we are creating a fund there. Where is this fund going to be used? In TÜSİAD, we think that this fund should be transferred to green transition projects, not anywhere else. It shouldn't be transferred to anywhere else, but green transition projects. So these are the 5 main concepts that are important for us. Digitalization and green transition are inseparable. That's number 1. Second, energy efficiency is very, very, very important, and it needs to be clarified. So together with technology, the incentives, the support needs to be clarified. Third, taxonomy is very important. We should be speaking the same language, to be clear. Number 4, carbon adjustment at the border and ETS, they need to be related to each other. And Turkey, together with ETS, it should just bring it at the same time. And 5th, we have created funds. We should use them for green transition. This is a perspective of TÜSİAD. Green transition, is a huge opportunity, not just a risk. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cevdet Bey. We totally agree with these 5 topics. I want to add a 6th one, especially when it comes to technology, local R&D and know-how. This definitely needs to increase. So we should have less expensive local production. So I think this is an important 6th concept. So in the first round, we have heard great remarks. We'll continue with the second tour. I'll go back to Harry. in the second tour, I want to ask the speakers, in order to get rid of this ambiguity, what needs to be done? So what do your institutions do about these? What are your suggestions for solutions? Yes, Harry, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, I think, what can an institution like EBRD do? There's two things we do. One is we provide finance for green investments, and we provide that across the spectrum. So we support Turkish banks by lending to them on the basis that they will then on-lend for green projects, and that allows us to reach parts of the economy that we don't have the resources to service otherwise. We also work with municipalities. I mentioned before Gaziantep. We also work with Izmir and with Istanbul. And then we obviously work with many Turkish companies. And one of the great strengths of the Turkish economy is just one after another phenomenal companies who are really at the forefront, not just in Turkey, but globally, in terms of adapting to this new world, in terms of preparing for these new risks. So we provide finance, but in a way, that's what you'd expect me to say, because we have bank in our name. And if we didn't lend, and we wouldn't be a very good bank. The other important thing that we do, and other multilateral actors like us do, is that we try to provide support in designing your roadmap for this new world. And if you go back to the fundamentals of what's changing here, we're moving from an economy globally, which is 80% or something like 80% reliant on high carbon energy sources, to one that is 0% reliant in 30 years. And we talked earlier about whether or not it's realistic or not, but it's even if it isn't going to go to zero, it's going to go very, very low, and that is a huge transformation. We've never seen a transformation like that in economic history. So you need a plan and you need a map for that pathway. And so what we try to do is we try to help companies and municipalities and governments with designing that map or writing that map. Now, obviously, Turkey is a very big country, very big government, very big economy. It doesn't need our help in a lot of different places, but we will help, where we have something particular to offer. So we've provided inputs into the design of a renewable energy program. We've provided we're working now on a low carbon pathway for the steel sector. We have some discussions about some other industrial sectors. And I think, going to the substance of your question, which is, what do you need in order to reduce uncertainty? You need the right regulatory framework. And there are many elements to that, but I'll just mention a couple of really key ones. Number one is a carbon price of some sort. What's very clear is that the most efficient, most effective way to drive decarbonization, and incidentally to reward the companies that are most effective and most advanced in decarbonization, is to have a carbon price. So we're very interested, very excited to see how the Turkish government is going to develop the proposed emissions trading scheme. We think that will be hugely important for Turkey. So I think that's the number one thing. You need a carbon price in some form or other. Earlier speakers mentioned the carbon border adjustment mechanism. The carbon price is also vital in terms of preserving export competitiveness. If you want, especially in dealing with Europe, but I think also, frankly, across the world, this is going to come. If you want to be a globally competitive economy, it will be increasingly important to price carbon. So carbon price is really important. And then beyond that, you need the sort of sector regulation that really shows business, here's the long-term plan. Here's where we want our country to go. I mentioned the work we're doing on the steel sector, the work, obviously, the Turkish government is developing its new energy strategy. That's going to be hugely important. But really, everywhere you look, whether it's mobility, the shift to electric vehicles, whether it's a low carbon plan for the finance sector and requirements to disclose and talk about a taxonomy, you need that plan. So I think that's my basic answer to your question, is that you need regulation, and you need it in two forms. You need an economy-wide carbon price, and then you need sector by sector roadmaps that set the course and say, here's where we're going to go, here's the plan for 5 years, here's the plan for 10 years, and here's the long term.
Thank you very much, Harry. You gave great information. I believe you have to leave, right? Thank you very much for your participation.
I certainly have a few more minutes, and it's a very interesting conversation, so I'll stay as long as I can.
Okay, great. So listen to Sonia a little bit then. Sonia, I have the same question for you. as CDP, what contributions do you make in order to eliminate this ambiguity in the world? What needs to be done? Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for the question. I'm going to answer because I very much enjoyed a tick list of 4. In our first 2 decades, CDP focused on raising ambition around climate, water, and forests, and providing data to improve governance and decision making. There is now an urgent need to ensure stated intentions are accompanied by concrete plans with transition metrics and evidence of progress against the agreed goals. Climate change is a long-term game, but we cannot wait to 2030, 2040, 2050 to see if we're on track. We've got to be taking the numbers and taking stock year on year to make sure that we are on track. So to that matter, we're going to be working on 4 different areas. We've talked a lot about governments. CDP do work with governments globally. I don't know if you all know this, but if you disclose to CDP publicly, the targets that you set around climate change automatically get fed into what is known as a NASCA platform. This is a platform available via the UNFCCC to all policymakers, so they can see the levels of targets being set by companies, the number of targets, but also the ambition level. And I think in an interesting way, that gives you a really powerful position. We're talking about the end of uncertainty around regulation, and the moderator quite accurately put it. The uncertainty is very much there, but it's the end of ambivalence. Regulation and increased regulation is virtually a certainty on a global scale now. And businesses have a role in shaping that by setting bold commitments, by setting science-based targets, by engaging actively with governments. You will set the tone that they feel empowered to really put those things into position. They need to hear positives around carbon pricing, around that proposition. And by you as leaders engaging on that, you will be facilitating better global regulation. And we've seen that very much come to fruition in the USA. I won't go into details, but recently the SEC has launched an ambition to set mandatory disclosure. It references CDP X amount of times, and the businesses that we work with in the US were very proactive in stating how positive they were to see that happen. So engaging governments. The second thing that CDP will be doing is working with more influencers. We will increase the amount of stakeholders. I think most of you know that we work with hundreds of investors on a global basis. We work with 680 investors who represent $130 trillion in assets under management. What some of you may know is that we work with purchasers as well. Last year, we worked with over 200 major buyers who represented $5.5 trillion of purchasing power. The numbers are still being finalized, but we're looking at over 270 major buyers this year, and they're coming up to $7 trillion worth of purchasing power. We're also starting to work with more lenders alongside the investors. So you'll see a wider, as you work with CDP, you'll see a wider spectrum of stakeholders that we're bringing into this movement, this environmental disclosure movement, as that will tick up year on year. We will continue to push for more climate aligned goals, science-based targets. We're seeing investors actually push us a little bit more on strengthening that position within CDP scoring, but also in the way that they are now actively writing out to some of the biggest companies in the world, asking them to set science-based targets. That number of investors working with us and that emphasis on science-based targets, I think, will increase. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, someone has to be the accountant in this, and the CDP loves data. Those of you who've worked with us for years, we very much see our role in tracking the transition and lending transparency to is what we're seeing reported by companies on track with what the UNFCCC is hoping to see. We know from experience that the NDCs still aren't adding up. The global government commitments still haven't added up to what we need to avert this disastrous future. There is a hope that maybe the companies can sort of fill the void. That was the nature of Race to Zero. So we're going to be tracking that transition as we go forward and providing more feedback and support to companies that work with CDP to really get those transition plans in place, recognised, and to the best quality possible. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, I really hope that the number of companies participating in your program will increase. We know how critical the numbers are, and we know how critical the transparency in these numbers are, and we really value your contribution in this transparency and in these numbers. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to turn to Ms. Seray. The same question goes for you. What should Turkey do? As Garanti BBVA, how are you contributing to such activities in Turkey, and what are your future plans? Well, thank you once again. This process that started with the Paris Agreement, of course, the private banks have played a very important role, and we are aware of this responsibility, and green funding activities were very limited, but we started these activities in the beginning of 2000s, and we started by taking into account the green risks, but apart from that, we have seen also there were some climate-related opportunities, and as Garanti BBVA, we have always supported such companies in their green projects, and we actually, for instance, the green loan that was first applied in Turkey through Garanti BBVA, and we had so many developments since then. And for instance, such green projects have reduced loan rates, interest rates. So, and also we are helping them to raise awareness. So up until now, we have supported for more than 60 billion TL in green projects. Apart from that, in BBVA Group has embedded sustainability in its fundamental strategy. And right now, in our portfolio, decarbonization of our portfolio, we've been working on this since 2014. And all of the energy projects that we have been supporting since 2014 are renewable energy projects in wind power, for instance. In terms of installed power, we are the market leader in terms of the projects we supported. And thanks to our sustainability projects, we actually announced that we will be leaving the coal energy completely until 2024, and we will not be funding any more new projects that are using coal energy. And also, we have taken another important step, and United Nations zero banking commitment is what we have participated in. This is a very important step for us. It's like a roadmap. And in this roadmap, as a bank, we have a transformative power, and we are aware of this power, and we want to use this transformative power in the right places, and we want to take steps for carbon intense projects. And we have entered, we have a methodology or a project called PACT. There are many other international banks. Together with coal, there are 5 other sectors: cement, iron, and steel. And there are 2 other sectors. We're going to now identify goals to exit such sectors completely, and we're going to also help our customers in these sectors to transform their businesses. And we're going to also identify new targets in these sectors. As Ebru also mentioned in her opening speech, apart from our own activities, we are also working to improve the sustainable finance in Turkey. We collaborated with Stock Exchange Istanbul, and we launched Garanti BBVA Climate Index. And since 2015, we've been also reporting to water safety institutions. So we have seen also, we have realized the positive impact that all these initiatives made in our business. So now, we have companies who are actually included in this new index in Istanbul Stock Exchange. And our aim is to have a reliable index in water safety, and we would like to also increase the transparency of companies in their role in climate change. And we will continue to come up with different indexes. And this is, we will continue our efforts to improve the sustainable finance market in Turkey. Thank you very much. Hopefully your activities will get stronger year by year, and you're going to contribute to this very important transformation. Now I'd like to turn to Mr. Cevdet from the from the industry. We know that TÜSİAD is the largest NGO, and you are a board member in TÜSİAD. And there's something we've been always discussing. We should not wait everything from the government. We know that there are a lot of important things that can be and should be done by the private sector companies as well. So I've seen, what do you intend to do in order to increase the number of companies from TÜSİAD attending CDP? Can you maybe make such a decision in the board? Mercy Ararat also mentioned this actually in her speech. In many areas, we stay behind, but we are actually very ahead in terms of the attention that the private sector is giving to this transformation. And I was very proud of this. And individually, I am the board chairman of the 2 companies that were rated A by CDP in Turkey. So I'm proud of this too. So we are really working hard to make sure that more and more companies attend the CDP program in Turkey. We don't definitely expect everything from the government. As the world of TÜSİAD, the world of industry, as it was also said by the CDP, we are actually one of the pioneers in this regard. But of course, there's the other side of the medallion. What should we do from now on? Okay, we've done a lot, but what should we continue? How should we continue in this path? Well, we have to respect science, institutions, and people. And if we take this down or up to the level of sustainability, as you may remember, I concluded my speech by saying that this is not a risk, but an opportunity for us. Although it might sound like a cliche, but looking at how much we adapted to the EU regulations, our experience in EU business world, our digital transformation level, taking into all these things, compared to other countries that we compete with, we are in a very advantageous position. And of course, these are all an opportunity for the companies to actually focus more on sustainability. What can we do more about this? Well, let me name a few milestones. Well, one of them is this Green Action Plan. This is a very important framework, and it has to be actual, though, and it has to be relevant. So how are we going to do this 2030 and 2050 carbon neutralization goals? We have to be realistic about this, because I'm sure there are a lot of young people listening to us right now. But of course, in these years, we will be already retired. So in 2030, what will we be doing? We need to be more careful about this. We need to have more science-based targets. And our members are very keen about this, and they're taking very important steps. And I would like to reiterate once again that our roadmap, first of all, should be prepared in a very detailed way for the next 30 years. And also, this digital transformation is also very much related to these targets. So, customs union between European Union and Turkey is another critical point in this subject, because Green Compact and also as Turkey, we need the customs union also to organize, because this will make us closer to one another. Another thing is the Green Action Plan. The EU has a great action plan, actually, and our Ministry of Environment is working on another green plan, and they should be definitely related to one another, and there should be some incentive programs that will actually activate this cyclical economy. And we also talked about energy resources. Energy management is also a very important part of this transformation. You also mentioned R&D. Of course, in renewable energy, capacity improvement, research and development, and formation of new technologies, green hydrogen, decarbonization processes, green certificates, carbon capturing and storage technologies. I mean, all these are very critical topics, and they should be regarded as a 360 view. And there should be a fair transformation plan that should be put into place by the Turkish government, that is taking into account all these different elements, and also energy efficiency policies should be developed and put into place. There's another topic about energy. I would like to emphasize this one. Production close to consumption. This is very important. This will definitely help the energy efficiency problems as well. And also resource and reserve planning is another important theme that we need to develop and improve. Long-term sustainable green policy is what we need as Turkey. And looking at our relations with the EU, the carbon footprint should be tracked throughout the value chain. And here, we need to have digital processes for the infrastructure of these digital processes, and our GDPR, the data protection law, and all the other subtitles regarding this should be in harmony with the EU's GDPR, because this will definitely support exporting to EU, the new products exporting to EU. Mr. Carpenter also mentioned this. SMEs have always been a very important element in the Turkish economy. They should be also participating in the green revolution. So looking at the key things, customs union, updating of the customs union, digital and green passports to transit to green economy, renewable energy, green hydrogen, storage systems, and high technology and R&D that will support this should be incentivized. And the updating of GDPR and green certificates in energy efficiency. These are the important themes that I would like to underline once again. As I said before, we have to respect science, the institutions, and the people. So science, technology, they should be respecting, we have to support incentives, the grants, in order to respect people, and we have to also support new technologies and R&D. Thank you very much. I know that TÜSİAD has been working a lot on these topics, and I surely hope that you will continue your tremendous efforts. I would like to thank all of you once again. As it was the title of the panel, there are a lot of uncertainties. It's easy to put targets saying that let's do this for 2030, let's do that for 2050. But of course, we have to do whatever it takes to achieve these targets. We have a huge homework. Hopefully, we're going to do whatever we can. Maybe we're not going to reach these targets 100%, but we will get as close as possible. Thank you very much once again, and hope to see you all again.
So I would like to thank Volkan, Ediger, and the guests very much. Now we're going to continue with the award ceremony. Global A leaders, CDP 2021 Global A leaders. We're going to start with them first. So let's see in CDP 2021 reports which companies, which brands deserved an award. We're going to see them on the screen. Congratulations to all of them. CDP 2021 Global A leaders. We're going to start with them. So the first winner of the award is CDP 2021 Water Global A leader is Eti Soda Company. Congratulations. We're going to continue with the next one. CDP 2021 Water Global A leader, Korsa Teknik Textile Company. Congratulations. And another one, CDP 2021 Water Global A leader, Tekfen Holding. Congratulations. Now we'll continue with CDP 2021 Turkey leaders. In this category, CDP Turkey 2021 Climate Change and Water Leader, Arçelik. Congratulations to Arçelik. And another award goes to Brisa Bridgestone Sabancı Tire Company, CDP Turkey 2021 Climate Change and Water Leader. Congratulations. And another award, CDP Turkey 2021 Water Leader, Aksa Acrylic Chemistry Industry Company. Congratulations. CDP Turkey 2021 Water Leader, Aselsan Electronics Industry and Trade Company. Congratulations. CDP Turkey 2021 Water Leader, Coca-Cola Company. Congratulations. CDP Turkey 2021 leaders. So we have completed our lists. We would like to congratulate CDP Global and Turkey. We have presented the awards. Distinguished guests, now we have very distinguished 5 CEOs on our screens. Who are they? They were recipients of awards in more than one categories and programs. So we're going to see the 5 CEO of those brands that won awards in more than one category and program. We're going to listen to their words and their feelings. I have a very brief message. As you know, Arçelik has a certain business model. It puts sustainability in its center. That's how we transformed our model. I truly believe one thing. Today, companies that have completed this transformation will be present in the future. And our companies, the consumers, will focus on the products and services of the companies that completed their transformation. They will prefer those companies. No one can stop in front of that. The companies that do not do what is necessary won't be there tomorrow. I can speak very clearly because I'm involved in this process, and in the leadership team, we triggered and accelerated this process in Arçelik. And in fact, we're working very closely with CDP. We benefit a lot from them. There is the value chain program. We have activities there, and we were graded an A score. Thank you very much for that. But we look at sustainability from a 360-degree perspective. It's not just about climate or carbon emission or net zero. It's not just about that plan. And by the way, Arçelik is a very large company. We have factories all around the world. We have sales companies and teams. We're a global company. We also work in the field of water, so we have the A- grade in that field. This is an important point for us because in the future, water will be one of the biggest problems for all humankind and the natural ecosystem. So in 12 years, we have about 12 million cubic meters of water savings. So we're going to reduce the water consumption per product by 45%. It's the same with carbon emission. We're planning about 50% reduction of emission. Arçelik has a large scale, so these are very valuable commitments, and they're going to shift things, these targets and these words. So I would like to thank CDP for giving us these scores. We're in this sustainability transformation, and I would like to thank them for being our business partners in this process. So we have the Brisa Climate Change Program. Bridgestone and Sabancı Holdings, our partners, have a certain vision, and the environmental and the social dimensions have been going on for the last 15 years uninterruptedly. We are in line with the UNDP SDGs. We have this comprehensive roadmap. We foresee the risks first, and then we look at the environmental and social issues. We make sure to include them, and we have a lifelong perspective as we work. And we have the emission reduction targets. We calculated them based on the 1.5 degrees scenario. We have the science-based targets as well. These are approved. By 2030, we will decrease our direct emissions by 56%, and in 2050 we want to achieve net zero emission. And in CDP, climate change and water program assessments are important for us. In both of them, we're above the sectoral average. We have this kind of performance. In 2021, for the 6th time, we are the Turkey climate change leader. For the 3rd time, we are the water leader. And right now, in terms of the supplier relationships grading, we have the A grading score. So for the 3rd time, we're in the global leaders list. And in our value chain, we have this indirect emissions. We are constantly following up on them for improvement. At the same time, we have certain strategic targets. We look at our supply chain. We're working on improving that as well. So we have this global leadership that we brought to our country. I'm very proud and happy about that. I congratulate all my colleagues, and I would like to thank all our stakeholders for their faith in us. Distinguished participants, first of all, it's an honor to be part of this internationally renowned platform. I'm very honored to be sharing this speech with you. As you know, climate crisis leads to warm and dry climate conditions. It's not just in Turkey, but across the world, it led to natural disasters, and it will continue to do so. This threatens our lives, these excessive climate events. We're deeply saddened by these events. At the same time, we're combating with climate crisis and water scarcity. We understand the importance of this once again. The balance of the world is constantly changing, and we're trying to adapt to that. As it is SODA, we support renewable energy. We focus on preventing environmental pollution and the use of efficient sources. We focus on sustainable goals, and we continue our combat. We have a responsible production and consumption understanding. We contribute to circular economy, reduce our carbon footprint, and we also have this efficient waste management. We minimize waste. At the same time, we look at our product carbon print. We make life cycle analysis, so we have a holistic assessment of the whole process. Since 2018, we have this institutional carbon and water footprint. We calculate this based on international standards, and we constantly renew our roadmap from that perspective. CDP is also supporting the science-based targets. We signed this as well. In 2021, we have the science-based calculation of reduction of greenhouse emission. We made a commitment in that direction. And in 2021, we participated in UNGC, United Nations Global Compact Initiative, that is CEO Water Mandate. We're among the companies that signed that. So through this platform, we follow the transparency principle. We look at our water management performance. We report that. At the same time, at the global level, there are water protection policies that we are giving support to. So there is so much work that is carried out, and behind that, there is a very strong team. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues in Etisoda family. They exerted tremendous effort. I would like to thank our team, and I would like to thank CDP Turkey team. We started this journey with them, and I hope that this will progress further and we will continue together. Hello. Climate change is the focus in this community, and I'm very happy to be with this group. We work for a more sustainable future, and in our actions, the Carbon Transparency Project is guiding us. They're carrying out this challenging process at the global level with a very transparent understanding, so I'd like to thank them very much. So there is this 2021 climate change program of CDP. We have this A- note. We're among the leaders of Turkey with this grade. At the same time, when it comes to company suppliers, we have the CDP Supplier Relationship Assessment score for 2021. Our score is A, as Corsa. So with both results, we're happy to be among global leaders. We're focused on sustainable production, and we are expanding this to our supplier ecosystem, which makes us feel great. As Corsa, our passion is strengthening life, empowering life. So we are working for our children for a livable future. Sustainability is an important element of the strategy of Corsa. We have this efficiency, circular economy, production models. We focus on our supply chain. So throughout the life cycle of the product, we are working on sustainability. So for the future in sustainability, we would like to have this mission of being a leader and pioneer, and we're working towards our long-term goals. By 2030, we would like to reduce our waste and water consumption by 50%. As for global warming, we support this limiting to 1.5 degrees. So we also support the Science-Based Targets Initiative. We have our commitments. So by 2050, we will reach net zero emission, and we are going to increase our renewable energy resources in all our facilities. We have very proud results that motivate us as Kordsa. We are very determined, so we're going to continue our sustainability work. Distinguished participants, in our world, there is this irreversible, vague future, or there is the option of a sustainable future. So we're at this critical point. And in all our work areas, we focus on the solution of environmental and social problems. So the future belongs to those who build it. This is the motto of our working culture. We focus on human, social benefit, and environment. So we're shaping our vision around those elements as we continue our activities. So we have this idea of a sustainable future. In our sustainability journey, the main theme is the future. So we have the infrastructure and facilities that we build. We want to develop societies. We want to improve their quality of life. So in our chemistry and agriculture groups, we want to make sure that food security is guaranteed, because this is an important risk for the future. So those departments play an important role. We have R&D centers. We support entrepreneurs with tech ventures. So we focus on innovation and technology in all our activity areas. So we want to bring about environmental and social development. We want to bring about more efficient solutions. As a holding on the basis of all our activities, we want to create common values with our stakeholders, and we want to be sustainable. So we have agriculture and construction-based activities, climate crisis among our top priorities, and we want to work in line with the global agenda. We have the net zero emission target as well, and we take steps in that direction. In 2020, for the first time, we used the science-based target tool. We aimed at reducing our carbon emission in the medium and long term. By the end of 2025, in scope 1 and scope 2 emission, compared to 2019, we will decrease it by 15%. And by the end of 2037, in scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, we would like to have a reduction of 40%. So since its inception, TechFund has been very sensitive to the environment issues. It's constantly updating itself. The first emission calculations were made in 2010, and the official CDP climate change program reporting started in 2017, and the CDP water security program was a program that we started in 2018. In doing our work, we care about environment and natural resources. We would like to fulfill our responsibilities in that regard. In identifying our business strategies, we take into account the impact of climate and water crisis. For efficient water management, we take all steps in all our fields. In our R&D centers, we develop projects, and we want to expand our impact. We want to reduce water consumption with our contribution. In agriculture, in order to increase irrigation efficiency, we have some digital solutions. And in construction work and energy, we focus on green energy and LEED certification. So we focus on green solutions, and we want to increase our environment performance on and on. We are increasing our standards higher and higher. In 2021, in CDP climate change program, we have the A- grade, and in water security program, for the second time consecutively, we're on the global A list, which makes us very proud. As for these successful results, we would like to continue them. This gives us courage for the future. So I would like to accept this distinguished award on behalf of my company. I would like to give my wholehearted thanks to everyone, to all the participants. Yes, we have very distinguished brands, and we have listened to the distinguished 5 CEOs. Now we're going to continue. We will continue to present the CDP Turkey 2021 awards. CDP Turkey 2021 Water Leader Coca-Cola, we have congratulated them, and now we're going to continue. There is another award, CDP Turkey 2021 Climate Change Leader, Eti Soda. Congratulations to Eti Soda once more. And there is another award, CDP Turkey 2021 Climate Change Leader, Kordsa Teknik Textile Company, congratulations. Another award, CDP Turkey 2021 Climate Change Leader, Tekfen Holding Company. Congratulations to you as well. CDP Turkey 2021 Water Leader, Yapı Kredi Bank. Congratulations. So, as we continue, CDP 2021 Supplier Relations Assessment Leaders, Arçelik, Risa Bridgestone Sabancı Tire Company, Coca-Cola Company, Eco Logistics Company, Ekotan Textile Industry and Trade Company, Etis Soda Company, Kortsa Technic Textile Company, and Osman Gazi Electrical Distribution Company. We would like to congratulate each and every company and brand wholeheartedly. So, distinguished CEOs, we listened to them, we presented the awards, and we have completed this section as well. So we have been here since afternoon. This year, we have listened to the CDP 2021 Turkey program, the companies that were presented awards. We're very happy to present them to you. Distinguished guests, we would like to thank all the speakers who were with us today. They touched upon very important points. Those are very valuable for our country, for our world, and for the future. For a sustainable future, for a sustainable world, there are these important reports. We would like to thank CDP for this, and we would like to thank Sabancı University that is supporting and coordinating this program in Turkey. We would also like to thank our main sponsor, Garanti BBVA, that is supporting us, and the Deloitte, our report sponsor, Deloitte, very much. We hope that the 2022 report will be more auspicious for the world and for the future. Now, for the closing, I would like to invite from Sabancı University Corporate Governance Forum Director Atacan Berktay. So we're going to give the floor to him for the closing presentation. The floor is yours.
It has been a very intense program. It's over 2 hours now, and I hope certainly you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'd like to start by saying thank you. Well, it's been for months that we've been working to organize this meeting and also to write the report. So I would like to thank Hazal Baştimur, a young professional, for supporting us. I'd like to thank our report sponsor, Deloitte. And also I would like to thank Miran Köroğlu and also our firm's founder, director, Melisa Arat, a lot for their efforts. I would like to thank also Garanti BBVA for their contribution to our report and to the conference as well. And all the activities we carry out, thanks to their support, actually makes Turkey one of the 20 top countries in reporting the climate transition and ratifying the Paris Agreement. And I mean, we expect that the number of countries will increase, and there will be more indicators also addressed by all these companies. We wholeheartedly believe this. And the leading companies, and all the reporting companies, I would like to thank them a lot. Thanks to them, Turkey has ranked in a very, very higher ranking when it comes to the reporting countries. And of course, it's not only the number, but also the quality of the reports as well. Turkey has set 2053 net zero emission target, as you know, and these increasing numbers and the increasing quality is actually giving us hope for this target to be accomplished. And I certainly urge all the other companies to attend this program. We need to be prepared to the results or the consequences of climate change. And measurement is actually the first step of being prepared. So at Sabancı University and CDP Turkey, we are here to help you, to guide you, to support you. And I certainly hope that next year we're going to have it, have our conference on the physical environment, and we will be actually facing you after a very long break, so to say. Up until that, stay healthy and happy, and thank you very much for your participation.